Hey everyone, it's Hannah here, and today I want to share a story that I think is going to help a lot of you feel less nervous about healthcare in America. So, a few weeks ago, I had to visit an urgent care clinic for the very first time, and honestly, it was one of the most confusing experiences I've had since moving here. I didn't know how to describe my symptoms in English. I had absolutely no idea what a copay was. And when they handed me all these intake forms, I just stared at them like they were written in a foreign language. But by the time I walked out of there with my prescription, I had learned so much medical vocabulary that you absolutely need to know if you ever get sick in the United States. So, if you've ever felt scared or confused about going to a doctor here, this story is going to make you feel so much more confident. Let's get into it. All right, so here's how this whole thing started. I woke up one morning feeling absolutely terrible. My throat was so sore that it hurt to swallow. My whole body felt achy, like I'd been hit by a truck. And I could tell I had a fever because I was switching between feeling freezing cold and burning hot every few minutes. I'd been feeling kind of rough for about 3 days, but I kept thinking it would just go away on its own. By day 3, though, I knew I needed to see a doctor. The problem was, I had no idea where to go or what to do. My roommate took one look at me that morning and said, "Girl, you need to go to urgent care like right now." I just stared at her confused because I had no clue what urgent care even meant. Back in my home country, if you were sick, you either went to your regular doctor or you went to the hospital emergency room. There wasn't really a middle option. But here in America, there's this whole other level of healthcare called urgent care. I asked my roommate to explain, and she told me that urgent care is basically a walk in medical clinic for illnesses and injuries that need attention pretty soon, but aren't actual life threatening emergencies. It's much faster and way cheaper than going to the emergency room, but it's more immediate than waiting days or weeks to get an appointment with your regular doctor. And the best part is you don't need to make an appointment ahead of time. You literally just walk in whenever you need help. That sounded absolutely perfect for what I was dealing with, so I started getting ready to go. But before I left, I wanted to make sure I understood all my options because the American healthcare system is honestly pretty complicated. Through some quick internet research, I learned that there are basically 3 different levels of medical care in the United States. First, there's your primary care physician, which people usually call a PCP, or just your family doctor. This is your regular doctor that you see for annual checkups, routine health issues, and non-emergency stuff. The downside is that getting an appointment can take days or even weeks, depending on how busy they are. Second, there's urgent care, which is for situations that need medical attention within a few hours, but definitely aren't emergencies. Things like bad sore throats, ear infections, minor cuts that might need stitches, twisted ankles, stuff like that. And third, there's the emergency room, which everyone calls the ER, and that's located inside a hospital. The ER is only for truly life-threatening situations like heart attacks, severe injuries, uncontrollable bleeding, or anything that could potentially kill you if it's not treated immediately. Going to the ER is extremely expensive, and the wait times can be many hours long if you're not in critical condition. Since I was definitely sick, but not dying, urgent care was clearly the right choice for me. Before heading out, I grabbed my insurance card from my wallet. An insurance card is this small plastic card that your health insurance company gives you as proof that you have medical coverage. It has your insurance provider's name on it, your personal member ID number, and some important phone numbers you might need to call. You're supposed to bring this card with you to every single medical appointment. I decided to call the customer service number printed on the back of my card to ask how much an urgent care visit would cost me, because I was honestly pretty worried about the price. The woman who answered was really helpful, and she said, "Your copay for an urgent care visit is $40. I had to ask her what a copay even was, because I'd never heard that term before. She explained that a copay, which is short for copayment, is a fixed amount of money that you personally pay out of your own pocket for each medical visit, no matter what the actual total cost of the appointment ends up being. So even if the urgent care bills my insurance company something like $200 for my visit, I only have to pay my $40 copay, and my insurance covers the rest." That was actually a huge relief to hear because I'd been imagining I might have to pay hundreds of dollars. I drove to the nearest urgent care clinic, which happened to be a place called City MD about 10 minutes from my apartment. City MD is one of the biggest urgent care chains in America, especially on the East Coast. When I walked through the front doors, I immediately saw a waiting room with rows of chairs, a television mounted on the wall, and a handful of other sick-looking people sitting around waiting. A waiting room is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's the area where patients sit and wait until it's their turn to be called back to see the doctor. I walked up to the front desk where a receptionist was sitting behind a glass window. The receptionist is the person whose job is to check patients in when they arrive, collect insurance information and payments, and basically handle all the administrative and paperwork side of running the clinic. She looked up at me with a friendly smile and asked, "Hi there. Have you been to this location before?" I told her no. This was my very first time at any urgent care ever. She said, "No problem. Can I please get your insurance card and a photo ID?" I handed over my insurance card and my driver's license, and she scanned both of them into her computer system. Then she asked me, "So what brings you in today?" Which is a very common way that medical staff ask why you're there. I told her I had a really bad sore throat, and I was pretty sure I had a fever too. She nodded sympathetically and then handed me a small tablet computer with a form pulled up on the screen. She said, "Please fill out this patient intake form as completely as you can and bring the tablet back up to me when you're finished." I took the tablet and sat down in the waiting area to start filling it out. A patient intake form is basically a detailed questionnaire that collects all your basic medical information before you see the doctor. The first page was pretty straightforward. It asked for my full name, date of birth, current address, phone number, email address, all that basic contact information. But then it got more complicated and honestly kind of overwhelming. It asked about my medical history, which means any past illnesses, surgeries, major injuries, or ongoing medical conditions I've had throughout my life. It asked if I had any allergies, specifically drug allergies, which are medications that cause bad reactions in your body, like rashes or breathing problems. It asked me to list any current medications I take on a regular basis, which would be things like daily pills for conditions like diabetes or high blood pressure. And then it asked me to describe my symptoms in as much detail as possible. Symptoms are the physical signs and sensations you're experiencing that tell you something is wrong with your body. Things like pain, fever, nausea, dizziness, coughing, whatever you're feeling. I did my best to fill everything out honestly and completely, even though some of the medical terminology was pretty confusing. After I finished the form and returned the tablet to the receptionist, she told me to have a seat and someone would call my name soon. I waited for about 15 minutes, and then a woman in scrubs opened a door and called out, "Hannah?" I stood up and followed her back through a hallway into a small examination room. She introduced herself and explained that she was a medical assistant, which people sometimes shorten to just MA. A medical assistant is a trained healthcare worker who helps doctors by doing basic medical tasks like taking vital signs, measuring height and weight, preparing patients for exams, and updating medical records. She was super friendly and put me at ease right away. She asked me to hop up onto the exam table, which is that padded table covered in crinkly paper where you sit during medical appointments. Then she said, "I'm just going to take your vital signs real quick, okay?" Vital signs are the basic measurements that show how your body is functioning, and they're checked at pretty much every medical appointment. The first thing she did was take my temperature using a small digital thermometer that she gently stuck in my ear for just a couple seconds. In America, body temperature is measured in Fahrenheit rather than Celsius, and normal body temperature is around 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. She looked at the reading and said, "Yep, you definitely have a fever. You're at 101.3. A fever means your body temperature is higher than normal, which usually happens when your body is fighting an infection." Next, she wrapped a blood pressure cuff around my upper arm. Blood pressure measures how hard your heart is pumping blood through your arteries and veins. The cuff inflated automatically and squeezed my arm pretty tight for a few seconds, then slowly released. Normal blood pressure is usually around 120/80, and mine was pretty close to that. She wrote down all my vital signs on her computer and said, "Okay, the doctor will be in to see you in just a few minutes." Then she left the room and I sat there waiting, feeling increasingly nervous. After maybe 5 minutes, there was a knock on the door and a man in a white coat walked in. He smiled and said, "Hi, Hannah. I'm Dr. Martinez. So tell me, what's going on with you today?" I explained that I had this really terrible sore throat that made it painful to swallow. I had a fever, and my whole body felt super achy. He asked how long I'd been feeling this way, and I told him about 3 days. Then he asked a bunch of follow-up questions like, "Do you have a cough? Any runny nose or congestion? Headache?" Congestion is when your nose is all stuffed up and blocked, so it's hard to breathe through it. A cough is when air suddenly bursts out of your throat and mouth, usually to try to clear something irritating. I told him I had a little bit of congestion, but no cough, and yeah, a mild headache. Dr. Martinez listened carefully and then said, "All right, let me take a look at you." He pulled a stethoscope from around his neck and pressed the round, flat part against my back and chest while asking me to take deep breaths. A stethoscope is that iconic medical tool with the earpieces that doctors use to listen to sounds inside your body, like your heartbeat and breathing. Then he used a small light called an otoscope to look inside my ears, checking for any signs of ear infection. After that, he grabbed a flat wooden stick called a tongue depressor and asked me to open my mouth really wide and say "ah" while he looked down my throat. He said my throat looked very red and swollen, which is called inflammation. Based on everything he saw, he told me he wanted to do a strep test to check if I had strep throat. Strep throat is a bacterial infection of the throat caused by a specific type of bacteria called streptococcus, and it's pretty common in America. A nurse came in with a long cotton swab and rubbed it against the back of my throat, which made me gag a little bit, but only lasted a few seconds. She told me the results would be ready in about 10 minutes, so I just sat there waiting and trying not to worry too much. When Dr. Martinez came back, he was holding a printout and he said, "So your strep test came back positive, which means you do have strep throat." I asked if that was serious, and he reassured me that strep throat is very common and very treatable with the right medication. He explained that he was going to prescribe me an antibiotic called amoxicillin. When a doctor prescribes something, it means they're officially ordering a medication for you that requires a doctor's authorization. An antibiotic is a type of medicine that kills bacterial infections, and it doesn't work on viral infections like the common cold. He told me I'd need to take one pill twice a day for a full 10 days, and this was really important. Even if I started feeling better after just a few days, I absolutely had to finish taking all the pills for the entire 10 days. Stopping the antibiotic too early can cause the bacteria to come back even stronger and become resistant to treatment. He also said that if I wasn't feeling significantly better within 3 or 4 days, I should come back to urgent care or call my primary doctor. I expected Dr. Martinez to hand me a paper prescription like I was used to back home, but instead he told me he was sending my prescription electronically to my pharmacy. In modern America, most doctors now send what are called electronic prescriptions, or e-prescriptions for short, directly to your chosen pharmacy through a secure computer system. I just told him which pharmacy I normally use, and he sent it over right away without any paperwork for me to carry. He also handed me a printed document called a discharge summary, which is basically a written summary of your visit, including your diagnosis, treatment instructions, and advice for taking care of yourself at home. My discharge summary told me to get plenty of rest, drink lots of fluids like water and soup, take over-the-counter pain relievers like ibuprofen or acetaminophen to help with the fever and body aches, and avoid close contact with other people for at least 24 hours after starting the antibiotics, because strep throat is highly contagious. Contagious means it can easily spread from person to person through coughing, sneezing, or even just talking closely. Before leaving, I stopped at the front desk to pay. The receptionist said, "Your copay today is $40. How would you like to pay?" I handed her my credit card and she processed the payment. Then she mentioned something that confused me at first. She said, "You'll also receive an explanation of benefits in the mail from your insurance company in a few weeks." I had no idea what that was, so I asked her to explain. She told me that an explanation of benefits, which people usually call an EOB, is a detailed document that your insurance company sends you after any medical visit. It breaks down exactly what services were provided, how much each service cost, how much your insurance paid, and how much you were responsible for paying. She emphasized that it's not a bill, even though it kind of looks like one, and it actually says, "This is not a bill," right at the top in big letters. It's just for your own records so you can see how your insurance benefits are being used. That made sense, so I thanked her and headed out. From the urgent care, I drove straight to my pharmacy to pick up my prescription. Since Dr. Martinez had sent it electronically, when I walked up to the pharmacy counter and told them my name and date of birth, the pharmacist was already able to find my prescription in their system waiting for me. I didn't have to hand over any paper or anything. She told me it would take about 20 minutes to prepare, so I wandered around the store for a bit and then came back when they called my name. I showed my ID, paid a small copay of $10 for the medication itself, and left with a bottle of amoxicillin pills. The pharmacist quickly reminded me to take one pill twice a day with food for the full 10 days, and to make sure I took it with food so it wouldn't upset my stomach. I went home, took my first antibiotic pill with some soup, and basically spent the rest of the day sleeping on the couch. By the second day, I was already starting to feel just a tiny bit better. By day 5, I felt almost completely back to normal. But I made absolutely sure to keep taking the antibiotics for the full 10 days, just like the doctor instructed, even when I felt totally fine. Looking back on that whole urgent care experience, I realize I learned an incredible amount of essential medical vocabulary. Urgent care is a walk-in clinic for situations that need fairly quick medical attention, but aren't emergencies. A copay is your fixed out-of-pocket payment for each visit. Your insurance card proves you have coverage. A patient intake form collects your medical information. Vital signs are basic body measurements like temperature and blood pressure. A fever means elevated body temperature. Symptoms are the physical signs of illness. A diagnosis is what the doctor determines is wrong with you. A prescription is the doctor's official medication order. An antibiotic kills bacterial infections. And an electronic prescription gets sent digitally straight to your pharmacy. These are words and concepts you absolutely need to understand to navigate healthcare in America successfully. So that's my complete urgent care story. From waking up, feeling terrible, and not knowing where to go, to learning about copays and vital signs and electronic prescriptions, to finally getting the treatment I needed. It was definitely overwhelming at first, but now I feel so much more confident about handling medical situations in America. Being sick in a new country is scary enough without also feeling lost about the language and the system. So I really hope this story helped you feel more prepared if you ever need medical care here. If it did, please go ahead and hit that like button to let me know. And if you're loving these daily real-life stories where I break down American vocabulary through actual experiences, make sure you subscribe right now and turn on those notifications so you never miss a video. I post a brand new story every single day, and tomorrow's is going to be packed with even more useful vocabulary from my life here in the US. Stay healthy, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.